Okay, cool.
All right. So again, welcome to this webinar with Joel Erway from thewebinaragency.com. Joel has 3 podcasts, Sold with Webinars, which I've been binging on, Experts Unleashed, and then those are his 2 podcasts. We also did an episode on the Lifter podcast called LMS Cast, which was really good, and we'll put a link to all of those in the chat. I'm super pumped to get the course creation communities learning from you about webinars, because when I first heard your podcast, you have a talent of, taking what can be kind of complicated, like sales, and there's this whole webinars are like long and there's like a structure to it all, but you just have a way of being a great teacher yourself. So I'm just super pumped to be the student today and learn from you. We got a bunch of people jumping in. I just want to welcome Lisa, Elizabeth, Ed, Patrick, Ronald, Jeffrey to the call. Ask questions. We have a Q&A feature here on Zoom. So feel free, as Joel gets into it, to ask as many questions you have about whatever. We're going to have time for Q&A. If you're watching this on Facebook, we'll also be checking Facebook comments for any questions on that. If you're on Facebook and want to jump over here into the webinar, you will see a link below this video where you can come into the live Zoom webinar we're having here if you're not watching it later. So check out that. Joel, I'm super stoked to get into this with you. Course creators in general, most of the time, need a lot of help with sales. And I'm excited to learn from you today. So take it away.
Awesome. Chris, thanks for handing me the reins, man. Thanks for having me on. I am super excited, super pumped to share this with you guys. Course creation, course creators, experts, coaches, consultants, like that is my bread and butter. I love all of you because you are out here to serve the world. And that is really what we're here to do. I'm just trying to help make a bigger impact by showing you guys all how to make a bigger impact. So Ed, Elizabeth, Jeffrey, Lisa, Patrick, and Ronald, welcome to our training today. Unfortunately, I can't welcome anyone who's on Facebook Live. I just don't have that many windows. So if you're on Facebook Live, thank you for tuning in as well. But I can see the names on Zoom. And we're going to get started. So I'm going to try something a little bit different today. David, welcome aboard. You just joined on. So I am going to go ahead and minimize that, and I'm going to get started with a presentation today. So I'm trying something a little bit different. Normally, I like to minimize my video because I want you guys to focus on the content. But today, I'm going to keep the video on. I'm going to keep this engaging, keep this interactive, and just try something new. One of the things with webinars that you should do with all of your marketing is you should always be trying new things. And so what we are going to be talking about today, what Chris wanted me to share my message with all of you is specifically how we write $1 million webinars for course creators in any niche. And so we're going to talk about my 3-step system to writing profitable webinars without falling victim to what I call the expert's curse. And we're going to dive deep into what the expert's curse is in just a little bit. So as we get started, let me give you a framework of what this structure is going to be for you guys, what you can expect, and how we are going to be delivering this training for you. So we're going to be running for about 70 minutes today. Our content is 100% focused on how to write effective sales presentations that influence and convert cold traffic into buyers, right? And my goal is to make today's free training worth, I'd say, at least $5,000 to your business. Now, what I'm sharing with you is exactly how our team writes sales presentations, how our copywriters, how our agency, how we write sales presentations and sales webinars. There's no doubt the structure that I teach you will give you the insights and ideas for how to create this on your own. So my only ask is that you treat this as if you paid $5,000 to learn this, okay? Now, what that means is if you can't be half interested. Like, I know how online trainings work. I've done just a couple of webinars in my life, right? You have every opportunity in the world to have multiple windows open, checking email, Slack, Skype, whatever it is. So if you'd like to get $5,000 worth of value from this training, then you need to be focused and you need to be engaged fully. Now, why do I say that? Well, because webinars are meant to be engaging. They're the only marketing platform out there that I can think of that are designed specifically to be engaging, which is one of the primary reasons why they are so effective at converting cold prospects, cold leads into sales. So to keep this engaging, and so you can consume the content as best possible, I'm going to have 2 to 3 spots during the presentation where I will pause. I'm going to answer questions. I'm going to be asking for your feedback. We're going to be engaging. So what I need you to do is to ask questions throughout the training. And when I pause, you'll know exactly what it is. I'll check and we can answer them live. Chris and Kathy are also going to help me as we moderate. And so keep those questions flowing. I promise we will get to all of them as we go through the training. Right now, here's a little tidbit too. The best way to keep this engaging is to actually deliver a workshop for you. So we have a workshop session midway through where you might even land new customers and leads on this workshop, right? So I need you to pay attention. I'll be going through all of that and I'll be showing you exactly how we do this. This is part of the brand new piece of content that I've added into our webinar. So I'm very, very excited about this. So to start, I want to take a quick poll, right? If you want to use webinars to sell your own courses or products, I want you to go ahead and type 1 in the chat box. I just want to get a pulse for who the audience is today, who we are dealing with. Now, I know we're targeting course creators, but you never know, right? I want you to type 1 if you want to use webinars to sell your own courses or products, or type 2 if you want to get paid to write webinars for clients and sell their courses and their products, right? So this is the difference between course creators and agency owners. So I'm going to pause.
I'm seeing all ones. I'm seeing all ones coming in.
All ones?
Oh, wait, there's a 2. There's a 2. We
Cool.
do have a 2 from David.
Awesome. So David's a 2. We've got Ronald and Jeffrey. We got a 1.
A 2 from Ed.
2 from Ed. I knew Ed was going to be a 2. That's exactly why I put it in there. So awesome. So actually it's almost split now, right? So we've got half and half, which is, I'm glad I asked the question, right? So I've renamed this presentation and I changed some things because what you can also learn from this presentation is you can learn how to get paid to write webinars or include this in your marketing arsenal. And like we get paid, guys and gals, we get paid a lot of money. Like the most we've been paid on an upfront fee is 40 grand to write a webinar, right? So like they're super, super valuable. So when I say that this training is worth $5,000, like please, please, please believe me that it is worth at least 5 grand. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and close that again. So here's what you're going to learn today. What we're going to be discussing is first, we're going to how to leverage webinars to create a predictable source of new business so you can scale beyond 6, multiple 6, even 7 or 8 figures per year, right? I put 6 figures on the slide because that is probably the most comprehensible, but we have absolutely leveraged webinars to scale companies scale businesses and course creation businesses specifically past 8 figures, right? So I don't want to get too big and too, pie in the sky here, but it's absolutely possible. So of course, we're also going to talk about the 3-step sales webinar method that has generated millions of dollars for myself and for my clients, and how to use it to create your webinar or your clients' webinars, right? So they're going to go hand in hand. It's all going to be interchangeable when I talk about how to create webinars. You'll learn how to position yourself as an expert in your marketplace, even if you don't have any testimonials. So if you're just getting started or you're just launching a new offer, and you'll learn how to quickly write effective sales webinars and charge at least $5,000 to your clients, even if you've never written a word of sales copy before. This is one of the new things that I've added into this presentation, which I'm very excited about. And you're going to discover how to choose the right content to include in a sales webinar to convert the most amount of sales possible. Now, the reason why we are covering this today is because there are 2 types of people who are using digital marketing online. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about the digital marketing landscape real quick because we're in quite the pickle. Now, as you're probably aware, the digital marketing landscape is changing daily, right? People are crying from the rooftops about the rising cost of paid ads. Funnel hackers are popping up everywhere, stealing, and I mean hacking, your hard-earned IP, right? And Zuckerberg is causing ads to go haywire after his analytics debacle, right? It's pretty much a complete mess right now, and it's all over the place. Very, very lack of consistency, and people just really have no idea what's going on or what the future holds for digital marketing. Now, unfortunately, this only compounds the issue if you're just getting started, because not only do you have those issues to deal with, but you still have to determine, number one, how to find the right people to target your offer to, right? Very, very important. The who is very important when you design any sort of marketing plan. Number 2, how to find the right offer for your products and services. Now, this is coming straight from Chris. Yesterday, I sent him a message. I said, Chris, what's the biggest problem that your audience is having with, marketing online? And he goes, dude, a lot of them are just kind of all out in the weeds with what to offer, and they just need some clarity on that. So we're going to discuss this, and I wanted to bring that to the surface right now. And number 3, if you're doing any sort of marketing, you must figure out how to get your audience to convert and buy your offer at the end. All of this is a lot. But the good news is, of course, you are not alone. And let me encourage you, because it took me a lot longer than I care to admit to learn that webinars provide a huge opportunity for entrepreneurs just like us to provide tremendous results and value to our potential clients. And what you're going to see today is exactly how much they're willing to pay for webinar services and how much you can potentially earn when you dial in a sales webinar, and why webinars are an excellent marketing tool to promote yourself or attract new clients. All right. Quick, 2-minute bio, 1-minute bio. I try to keep them very, very short. Who am I? Why am I talking about this? As Chris already mentioned, my name is Joel Erway. I'm a former engineer turned marketing geek and founder of the webinar agency and Experts Unleashed, where we build high converting sales webinars for entrepreneurs just like you. Now, from 2009 to 2014, I sold millions of dollars in commercial heating and cooling equipment using, guess what? Sales presentations. We were very successful as a company, and I got great experience in the sales and marketing world. In 2014, I decided to leave out on my own and build my own business, hence the birth of the webinar agency. But in 2015, I was struggling as an entrepreneur, trying to launch my own products, my own softwares, and my own courses. And I began consulting with online business owners, helping them create 7-figure sales webinars. And that's where I realized there was a tremendous opportunity in this space. Webinars had just gotten hot right about then. They kind of were on the upswing, but it was a great opportunity for me to kind of stick my flag and my unique differentiator in the marketplace. And my first client that I took was using a webinar to sell about $1,000 worth of his products per week. And after I revised his presentation, it had done $14,000 in sales after just one run, right? So that's a 14-fold increase after just 2 weeks. And since then, he has went on to do multiple 7 figures that first year. Now, instantly, I landed my first $5,000 to $10,000 per month client, right? Because I was paid based on how much we earned. I was paid on a commission-only basis. So that's why I give that range there. But all told, with the presentations and webinars that I've been associated with since 2015, we've built or consulted on hundreds of webinars, and our collective revenue has generated well over 10 figures, not 10 figures, $10 million. And that's growing every single day. As an agency who provides these services, we charge anywhere up to $40,000 per project to write these webinars. Now, as Chris also mentioned, I run a top-rated 5-star podcast called Sold with Webinars, where I've interviewed more than 30 experts who have launched, grown, and scaled their business past 7 figures using webinars. And this is quite possibly some of the greatest content that I've ever produced. And I've had people message me saying how much this free podcast alone has helped them grow their business, right? So I'm very passionate about teaching this stuff. And as you can see, some of the guests that we've had on here, Jack Bourne, David Abrams, who runs Demio, a webinar software, Ryan Stewman, Scott Oldford, Shanda Sumter, and Dan Henry. They've all been guests on my podcast and have all been either clients or I've worked directly with them in some form. So that's who we've had on the podcast, and I love talking about this stuff. Right? The strategies that I'm about to show you today is what I've shown all of my clients and students who were able to get results that completely transformed their business to become 6 or 7-figure experts in their respective niches. Right? Now, Lynn is a personal trainer, and we built him a webinar that made $40,000 in 14 days, completely automated, while we were traveling together to a mastermind event. Eddie was teaching people how to build businesses selling products on Amazon, and after a couple of weeks, he revised his webinar to where he was making $10,000 every time he ran his webinar, which was usually 3 to 4 times per month. Now, Jason was a marketer who was struggling, and he came to me looking to build a webinar. And after a few tweaks, he now routinely started generating $25,000 per month with his webinar. He's doing some amazing things right now. He's well over 6 figures per month. I mean, these numbers are from almost 2 years ago. So I definitely need to update them, but it still paints the picture of like what the potential is, right? That's what I'm here to show you how to do today in an ethical and in a meaningful way, right? So at the end of this presentation, Chris wanted me to share with you guys a link to a free $466,000 webinar case study, which I will do. We'll do that at the very end, right when we do Q&A. It's an awesome, awesome case study of the client that I initially jump-started their online program with that I mentioned in the very beginning of this presentation. Plus, we're also going to discuss something that I'm very excited and very passionate about that is sure to help inspire you as you progress through your webinar journey. We're going to briefly discuss the Webinar Vault for Entrepreneurs. Now, what is it? It's a complete deep dive inside of my mind and to see how I analyze the top webinar campaigns on the internet today. Now, it works because currently more than 8 in-depth webinar breakdowns, email sequences, funnels, transcripts, and walkthroughs. I show you exactly why and how these campaigns are so successful. Who is it for? Use these to learn how to model successful webinar campaigns and deploy them for your own benefit. Just one campaign that I reviewed reportedly generates more than $300,000 per month completely automated. And we'll talk a little bit more about what those campaigns are towards the end of the presentation. I'm going to give you more of those details at the end. And just so you know, the decision to join is completely up to you. I never want you to feel pressured. And there's a free trial that you can even join at the end. Just wanted to give you a preface so we can get all the awkward stuff out of the way and you can focus completely on the content. All right? Sound good?
Sounds fantastic. And welcome everybody who's joining the call. We have Gunter has joined us. We've got some people calling in. Welcome everybody. I'm so stoked because you said here, Joel, that you do the deep dive. That's what I love about all your content. There's no fluff. It's a deep dive.
Yep.
So I can't wait, man.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. I'm very passionate about it, and this is like quite possibly the thing that gets me fired up the most. Waking up every single morning is. We'll talk more about it, but it's literally a look inside of my brain on how I view and analyze all of these webinars. Right?
I want to say one more thing about Joel before you get into it, which is one of the things I often talk about in learning is to go the value of going into the offline world and, looking at your life and how you learn pre-internet or when you're not online and stuff like that, just to get ideas for how to teach effectively. You were talking about going to a sales presentation for like a timeshare on one of your podcasts. And I was like,
a real estate seminar. Yeah.
Yeah. And you were learning from the offline world, even in your history of doing, sales presentations in a room or whatever. I think having that off the internet experience is, foundational to just a deeper, broader perspective.
Yeah. I mean, let's point the elephant out in the room. Like the whole reason why I'm doing that is because, we've been so conditioned on all of these templates and all of these scripts to follow that like, when you only follow scripts, you completely block off your learning capabilities, and you're dependent on every single word of that script. And am I saying this word or do I say this word? You completely eliminate your comprehensive ability, right? So that's why we'll talk a little bit more about this because I call it my laws of mastery, and I have an entire slide on this because it's quite literally exactly what you're talking about. So we'll talk about that at the very end. But yes, it's very, very important that somebody that you're connected to in your network is perfecting the art and mastering the art of something that you want to do. Perfect.
Excellent.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So the only reason why I share all of these things that I'm doing in the webinar space, guys and gals, is to prove to you that I truly do eat, sleep, and breathe webinars. This is my life, and I'm here to show you how to make them work for you. All right, so the big question that I give people who are creating courses is this. They will ask me, Joel, will webinars work for my niche, or are they only working in make money online spaces? Like if I had to pinpoint one question, that is it, right? And so rather than me blindly say, yes, Mr. Attendee, Mrs. Attendee, they will work for you, I'll give you a few examples of some obscure niches that we have had actual results for. Okay, so we did have one in the business opportunity niche that did $466,000 in 6 months. That is the case study I'm going to give you at the end of this webinar. We had a consulting niche that did $100,000 in their first month. We had a dentist who generated $75,000 in new revenue in just 6 days. And we had an online course that generated $105,000 in just 7 days. So the answer is a resounding yes. Yes, 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 it can work for your niche. If you solve a problem for anyone, then yes, a webinar will work for your niche. Now, all of that was possible using the system that I developed called the 3-part ARE webinar sales method. And it's unlike anything else out there on the market today. So get your pen and paper out or open up a text editor, however you like to take notes, because I'm going to break this down into detailed and actionable chunks, and you'll learn how to easily write each part of your webinar with this method for your business and your niche. So you can take exactly what I show you, develop what I feel to be is the most valuable skill, and write high converting sales presentations for yourself, of course, or for your clients. Now, in order for you to truly understand why webinars are so valuable, you have to understand the foundations first, okay? We must first ask ourselves, we're going to talk about a brief lesson on, effective marketing. Like, why is this so effective, right? Because here's the truth. Like, you don't need any complex marketing funnel to sell. The only thing that you need is a simple sales message targeted at the people who are simply most likely to buy from you right now. Okay, so let me expand more on this. All leads are not created equal. There's no such thing as all leads are created equal, right? So here, hold on one second. We had a duplicate slide there. Okay, so there we go. Okay, I'm not sure what just happened there, but let's talk about sales effectiveness, right? Sales effectiveness comes down to one core central idea, and that is the temperature of your prospect. Now, here's what I mean when I say that. I want you to imagine that you're home. You're about to sit down for dinner with your family, and you receive a phone call from a number that you don't recognize, right? This happened to me literally an hour and a half before this call. I got a call from New York City, and I answered the phone, and it was somebody speaking some Asian language, Chinese or Mandarin, but it wasn't even English, right? So what did I do? I got angry, and I hung up on him. Like, somehow this has been happening to me more often than not for the past 2 months. I've been on some sort of, solicitation list, and it's just completely aggravating, right? So only to find out that someone is trying to sell you something that you've never shown interest in before, and you're annoyed because somebody interrupted your day, they interrupted your family time to try and sell you something, right? So you probably feel like this guy, and you're going to hang up. Now, whether or not a sale is made on that call depends heavily on what the salesman on the line says and how they can convince you of the benefits of what they're selling. But the odds are highly unlikely that you'll ever be convinced to buy what this person is selling you without ever having met them, knowing nothing about their product. So you would be considered a very cold prospect, low likelihood for a sale. Now, imagine for yourself that you're in the market to buy a new car. Your car just died on the side of the road, and you need a replacement as quickly as possible so you can get to work. So you've seen ads for certain dealerships in your area, so you walk on and check their lot. A salesperson approaches you and asks you some questions about your needs, asks you what brings you in today and your desire for a new vehicle. And after some test driving and discussion, you decide to purchase a car from this salesperson. So here's the difference, right? In this situation, you'd be considered a very warm or hot prospect because you have come to actively seek out a solution to your problem. That's right. The customer is coming to you, not the other way around. Now, put yourself in the position of the salesperson or a business owner. What would you rather have? Constant rejection by cold calling prospects, interrupting them at dinner, or having your customers come to you? Well, if you're anything like me, the answer is obviously to have the customers come directly to you, right? So here's the definition. Hot prospects are defined as someone who has a need for your offer or solution, has a need to fix it now or very soon, has the authority to make the buying decision, and the budget to make the purchase. These are the most ideal and the easiest sales to make, which we want as many as possible, right? Now, a cold prospect is exactly the opposite, and they are always more difficult to make, and they're going to happen less frequently. But an effective webinar is not about making hypey claims, right? Or showing hundreds of testimonials and case studies, especially if you don't have any to begin with. Obviously, if you have them, they will certainly help. But it's not about interrupting potential prospects with crap that they don't want. And it's certainly not about having some complicated marketing funnel feeding into your webinar that takes months to see any sort of traction or ROI from. Now, I can tell you the main difference between a poor webinar and one that generates millions of dollars in new revenue, and it comes down to these few key things you're going to learn on this training here in just a minute. A great sales webinar, number one, provides tremendous amounts of value, right? No fluff. Like, you have to deliver value on your webinar or people are going to call BS. Number two, it educates your target audience based on their desires. Number three, it positions yourself as the authority. Number four, it targets those who are ready to buy now. And number five, it converts customers in mass versus one-to-one. Now, we're going to be covering a lot today, and there's no doubt this information will revolutionize the way that you market and sell and write any sort of sales material online. Now, I truly believe you're just one sales webinar away from having it all in your business and in your life. Now, that may sound corny, and you may have heard similar claims in the past. You're one funnel away, you're one whatever away, but it's absolutely true. Like, when you can identify the one thing that you need to make it happen, go at it with as full focus as you possibly can, because going from 0 to 1 is the most effective thing that you can do in your business. Now, do me a favor. I want to make sure that I've got your attention now. If you understand the opportunity I just presented with webinars and you're ready to seize the opportunity, go ahead and do me a favor, type 1 in the Q&A box in Zoom and let me know I've got your attention and we can move forward, all right? So let me grab this thing over here. Awesome.
We're getting ones. They're
Ronald, Ed's ready. Melinda's ready. Perfect. Very, very cool. Patrick's ready. All right. Awesome. Okay, cool. So here's the deal. Writing an effective $1 million sales webinar in any niche is actually quite simple. Now, our team breaks it down into 3 primary rules. Rule number 1 is called the instant ROI webinar, right? How to make $3.50 back for every $1 you spend on cold traffic advertising to consistently acquire new customers. Rule number 2, we call the expert's method for massive webinar conversions. How to write psychological content that sells, and here's the thing, before you ever make an offer. This is a lot of fun. Going through rule number 2 is probably my second favorite item that we talk about on this entire presentation. And rule number 3 is my favorite thing to talk about. It's called power offers. How to get leads running to work with you without falling victim to the expert's curse and before you ever write a single slide of your webinar, right? Rule number 3 is going to be a workshop, guys and gals. So that's why I need you to pay attention and stick with me, because we are actually going to be trying to get you clients and customers raising their hand, asking how they can work with you on this webinar. So we're going to start by establishing the foundation of creating a webinar that's going to give you an instant ROI so you can make $3.50 back on every $1 you spend on cold traffic advertising to consistently acquire new customers at a profit. Now, a couple of minutes ago, I gave you that brief lesson on effective marketing, learning the difference between cold and hot prospects. Like, you have to understand that. So the real question now becomes, how do we talk to only those hot prospects who are ready to buy right now? Right? How do we talk to people who have raised their hand and say, yes, sell me something? If those people are most likely to buy, then we can get faster feedback on how to position our offer so we can sell more of our products, more of our services faster, right? Does that make sense? There are 2 crucial elements that will quickly convert a prospect from cold to hot and then hot to buyer. And that is time and commitment. They're the 2 most important elements in converting a cold prospect into a hot prospect and ultimately into a buyer. Now, a few years ago, I was talking to one of my mentors about a high-ticket sales offer that we were running, and we were running paid media to drive people to fill out applications to work with our coaching program. Then our sales team would call those applications over the phone. Now, we were profitable, but that system was only slightly better than the telemarketer setup that I spoke about earlier, right? Just slightly better. We were interrupting our prospects because we had no appointment set. We would just call them on the phone and hope it was a good time to speak, even though they raised their hand and said they were interested by filling out an application. So then my mentor told me, he goes, Joel, if you get your prospects to schedule their own appointments and commit to a time, those prospects are 4 times more likely to purchase than someone who doesn't schedule an appointment. And something so simple has never made so much more of an impact, especially early on in my marketing career. By getting these people to commit to an appointment and showing up, they now had more commitments in their own mind and showed much more interest in our offer. Now, our attendance rates on the calls went up, our sales rates went up, and the same amount of marketing dollars spent to acquire those leads turned into far more revenue dollars. The entire system became much more effective. This was huge for us. And I tell you this because while you might not have a phone sales team ready to close offers for you, webinars do the exact same thing. People who register for a webinar or an appointment, right? That's all it is. It's an event-based appointment online, and who schedule an appointment to talk with you one-on-one and show up to live webinars, they are immediately 3 to 6 times more qualified simply because they showed up. The people who are most likely to buy from you are the ones sitting in your webinar room listening to your presentation, right? This is what I call the direct webinar method, using webinars to speak directly to the most qualified, most interested prospects at a mass scale so you can make a faster ROI. And here's what the system looks like. And quite frankly, it doesn't get much simpler than this when it comes to mass conversions. Step number 1, we promote the event or we promote the webinar, usually through paid media like Facebook or a partner webinar like we're doing today with Chris and LifterLMS. Step number 2, interested audiences register for the webinar and the event at the time that they choose. They will receive notifications and reminders about the event just like an appointment. Step number 3, they attend the webinar, they listen to your message and ultimately decide if they should purchase or not. Now, I honestly can't make this any more simpler than what I've shown you here. Any prospect who shows up to your live event has immediately raised their hand virtually, right? Sometimes physically, and they're telling you, hey, I'm walking into your dealership, right? Show me what you got. It's the same thing. We use live webinars to communicate with our audiences, get instant feedback, and improve upon our offer for maximum success. And this direct webinar system that I'm showing you right here has done millions upon millions of dollars for entrepreneurs without any other complex marketing funnels. Because the best part about this is, right, it doesn't get any simpler than this, right? And there's no funnel at all. So do me a favor, type 1 in the chat if you believe that if you started talking to more people who are ready to buy right now and not later, then you'd be able to enroll more customers into your programs. Do me a favor, if you can talk to people who are ready to buy now, not later, can you enroll more people into your programs? Can you enroll more customers or clients into your courses or programs?
We're getting a lot of ones.
Awesome.
They're rolling in.
They're rolling in. Perfect. So this is the best part, right? There's absolutely no funnel at all. No quote unquote funnel. I mean, you can call everything a funnel, but like when I say funnel, I'm talking like spaghetti funnels. Like you look at the process map and it's like branch logic out the wazoo. Yes, they do work. But for the vast majority of us, I reckon to say 90% of us, we do not need that starting out. This is the secret for all the funnels hackers out there, right? They either buy or they don't. And we take that data and improve upon our offer until we start making 3, 4, or 5x the return on our ad spend for 1 to 2 hours worth of actual work delivering the presentation each week. Pretty simple, right? Okay, so this is huge for you, and here's why. When you implement the direct webinar system, you'll be able to quickly warm your audience up from cold to hot when they spend time with you and make a commitment to listen to your message. You're going to eliminate any technical overwhelm from complex funnels that incorporate all types of qualified and unqualified leads so you can become ultra profitable with your marketing. Your customers or your clients' customers start coming to you and you're not chasing them and they're coming to you in masses, not one-to-one. And you'll start making more sales and helping more people who need your product, who need your course the most without digging yourself into a hole. This is a complete game changer for people who are seeking out massive impact, massive influence, and wanting to build a tribe as quickly as possible, right? And hopefully this is making sense to you at this point. So you're probably thinking, okay, Joel, this looks like what I need to grow my business. I get it. I understand now the foundations of what a webinar can do, but how do I actually write the webinar for my business? I have no idea what to say, right? That's where we're going with secret number 2. Rule number 2, the expert's method for massive webinar conversions, how to write psychological content that sells before you ever make an offer, right? This is probably your biggest sticking point in running a webinar. You know you'd be good at presenting, but how do you write one that actually sells? Maybe you could find a template online and simply fill it in. Okay, sure, give it a shot. But in my experience, they overlook a critical step in effective sales presentations. When I was back selling high-end commercial heating and cooling equipment to engineers and struggling mightily in the beginning, I would be flying around the country visiting my manufacturers that I represented so I could learn more about the products that I was selling. And after about 2 or 3 years of listening to presentations that my manufacturers would give about their products, many of whom were engineers themselves, I knew that they were just flat out ineffective sales presentations. They produced zero results. The presentations would be filled with technical mumbo jumbo, jargon, and terminology of a PhD candidate, and they'd put most of our audience to sleep. I knew that if I was going to make real money selling this stuff, that I needed to learn how to improve these sales presentations and give them more often. Give better presentations and increase the frequency. Like, those are the 2 rules that I had at that time. So as I traveled around the country visiting these manufacturers, as I stopped over in the terminals during my layovers, I would go into these bookstores like you're seeing right here on the screen and purchase books on how to give better, more effective sales presentations. I read countless books over and over and over again until it finally hit me. It finally dawned on me why our presentations were so ineffective at converting our prospects into projects and customers. When someone who is so passionate about what they do, it doesn't matter if they're an engineer, a course creator, a music teacher, a relationship expert, a business expert, any sort of individual, when they stand up and give their presentation, if they're passionate about what they do and they want to help people, they tend to want to share everything they possibly know about the subject in whatever time window that they have. Okay? Here's the secret, right? Here's the deal. By our nature, experts and individuals with passion love to share and teach. It's what we were born to do. And engineers are some of the most boring technical teachers out there. I can say that because I was an engineer. So the harsh reality is this, and it's what I found many people to believe when they put together a sales presentation. Experts think that they need to teach as much as possible to wow their audience, to prove I know what I'm talking about, right? And they think that if they teach them enough during the webinar, that they will just magically want to buy their offer at the end. Unfortunately, it just doesn't happen that way, and here's why. Because teaching doesn't sell. What I see more often when someone gives me a sales webinar to review is this. The expert takes their program or their offer that they're selling at the end, and something that took them a long time to learn how to do as a service or create as a product, and they try to cram all of it into a 60-minute presentation. I want you to think about that for a moment, okay? Let's say you've got a course that's 6, 8, or 12 weeks long, and you've crammed it all into a 60-minute webinar, right? Weeks or years worth of content that you took to learn and consume and to educate, crammed into 60 minutes. That would be like trying to cram a semester's worth of level 3 calculus into a 60-minute presentation. Now, do you think anyone in their right mind would understand what was taught trying to compress that much info into a short webinar? Absolutely not, right? This is the fatal mistake that experts make. Teaching too much will confuse your prospect. And there's a saying that goes, a confused mind doesn't buy, which is completely true. Our job as the webinar agency is to be able to strategically select the right content to present in a way that inspires them to continue to take action. So let me bring you in on a little secret that solves this problem for you. The best sales presentations do all of the selling before they ever ask for the sale. The content in the webinar needs to be written in a way that's subconsciously persuading your audience that your solution is the best option for them. You don't need hype or outrageous claims. You just need to follow this simple writing method that I'm going to share with you. And this method is exactly how I went from chasing sales and pounding the pavement to more than $2 million per year in HVAC sales and multiple $1-million webinars online. And this is it, guys. Take a look at the screen right here. The secret to getting your audience to sell themselves before your call to action is to focus on building rapport and relationships throughout your presentation. And to do that through telling stories that will connect and relate to your audience. The method that I teach to my students for how to build webinars that sell is using a simple method that I call the ARE webinar sales method. Now we're going to go through an example of this in just a moment, but this is the top level overview, okay? Part 1 usually lasts anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes. A lot of times we're making them a lot shorter than that even today, right? Because our attention span just keeps getting shorter and shorter. So we talk about attraction, authority, and awareness. That's all in the first 15 minutes of your webinar. Part 2 is rapport and relationship. How do we break the belief barriers with specific content that we know will bring them closer to wanting to work with us? And part number 3 is called the exchange. Usually that lasts for about 10 to 15 minutes in itself. So you're going to see that clearly the big chunk of your presentation is what you teach, right? And it's the most important part. Quite honestly, you can screw up parts 1 and 3 and still make sales. And I want you to pay attention to something very critical here. Structuring your content wrong will absolutely kill your conversions. Your audience needs to follow a flow. They have to follow a flow. And this method that I'll show you will give you a simple way to know how to create content that sells your program before you ever make the offer. Because what I discovered after reading all those books and reviewing hundreds of presentations was there wasn't some magical close that would miraculously get my audience to come running to work with me. There were no like special words that I needed to say to get them to hand over their credit card and join my program. I discovered that by changing their beliefs, they will trust me and they will follow me. Now, it might sound really psychological, but it's actually really simple, right? Let me explain. I want you to pay attention now, because if you understand that if you understand this, you can land high-end clients or sell your products to the masses, and you can create offers that convert like crazy. This is one of the most important parts of the entire presentation. So pay attention. Here's how psychological webinar content works. We break our content down into 3 primary chunks. So with part 1 of your content piece, what you want to do is introduce your product or your service, okay? Essentially, what you're doing is you're offering your offer that you're making at the end of the presentation. We are layering into part 1 of your presentation. Part 2 is all about answering their first major objection to that product through a specific piece of educational and informative content. And part number 3 is answering another objection to the product through another specific piece of educational and informative content. This is it. And I'm going to walk you through an example so you see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay? Here's what I mean. Because it's a whole lot easier to imagine this for your business if you see what it looks like in action. So I'm going to show you a webinar that did on autopilot over 7 figures in automated webinar sales for a $997 product. So what we've done here is I had a client who was selling a course on how to build a business on Amazon, right? It was very hot back in the day. I did this back in 2015, maybe 2016. Now, with that niche, there's lots of competitors out there teaching all sorts of different methods. Now, their unique method was what they called unsexy. The rest of the market was talking about how to create best-selling products. They were over here talking about how to sell unsexy products, right? So they had a very, very good differentiator. And their course was called the Unsexy Method for Selling on Amazon. So what do you think I had to bring up in my first piece of psychological webinar content that sells? Right? What do you think the first piece had to be? Had to be the system, right? Because I didn't want to swoop in the back and just be like, oh, here's all this great content. And by the way, I'd love for you to buy my program. This is what I talk about in secret number 1, content piece number 1, educational piece number 1. That is the system. So what we called it was debunking that bestseller myth, the backwards way to finding winning products, how to retrain your brain and get ahead of the game without competing with bestsellers. So as we move forward, we would bring up the first major objection. As we transition to piece number 2, we bring up the first major objection that we already knew that they had, right? As we discovered and we talked about their system and we were spending time teaching and educating them on what this whole system was, my clients knew that they were instantly going to say, okay, great. Here are all the distributors that you just showed online. Here are all the distributors and suppliers that you just showed in content piece number 1. Aren't all the good suppliers and products already established with the power sellers, right? They thought that there was too much competition. So we addressed that right away, and we segued that into piece number 2. Like that transition piece is instantly how we go on to content piece number 2. And we said, nope, that myth is false. That belief is false. Unsexy suppliers need your help getting their products to market. And here's the 3-step process for how to find suppliers in any niche in less than 10 minutes. And all we did there was we explained to them that suppliers are not in the marketing and sales world. All they want to do is they want to distribute their products. All they want to do is manufacture their products. They don't want to do the marketing side. So that was the big shift that we had to get for them. And we had to prove to them that all the suppliers weren't taken. Okay, so that's what we did in part number 2. So now we spend 10 or 15 minutes talking about that. And we instantly have to say, okay, what's the next transition piece? What's the next major objection? Well, as we go and we show them where all these products are, we give them lists of like literally tens of thousands of products that they can go out and sell. So instantly they're like, holy crap, that's a ton of products, and not all of them are going to be profitable. How do I filter through all of these products to know which ones will sell at a profit? So do you guys understand what I'm doing here? I'm actually just entering the conversation that they're having inside of their mind. And when I bring it up in front of them, if they're having that conversation, that bond is just infinitely stronger because it's almost like I'm talking specifically to them. And if they're not having this conversation in their head and you show them that they need to be having this conversation in their head, the same thing happens. If you prove to them that they have to think about this, and this is a big objection that most people have, they are going to love you for it. And they are going to appreciate you being truthful and honest in showing them the way to the promised land, whatever your system and your methodology is. And so then in secret number 3, we conquered that major objection, and that was it, right? We only launched one version of this webinar and it took off right away. Does that make sense, everybody? You guys getting this? Does this help simplify like how to create content that sells?
I think that's awesome. I just want to, just one piece of commentary. Could you speak to objection handling and how that's not like a sleazy thing? Like sometimes we think that, oh, I got to handle objections. That's what sleazy salespeople do.
Yeah, great question. I mean, objections, you have to understand that like when you go through a buying process, your mind thinks logically, right? So, it gets excited emotionally. Like whenever we write sales emails, like we always start by writing to get them excited and connecting with a pain that they've got, right? But you want to get them excited like a little kid, right? Like that's how you pique their excitement. Then once you show them the offer and you say, okay, listen, this is how we make good on that promise, they're like in their mind, the kid side brain of them is like, they don't have buying power, like they don't have buying capability. So the adult side and, the big parent side has to take over and say, okay, listen, I know you're excited, little kid, but we need to walk through the steps and say, does this make sense? And so just think about it like you're talking to that side of the brain, and they're going to go through a couple of just major questions that they need answered, right? Anyone who makes a buying decision, think about the last time you purchased a home, an apartment, or a car, a major purchase. How many different things did you question in your mind? And if you didn't get those answered, you weren't going to make that decision. All it is this is not being a pushy salesperson, right? I'm not all about, hardcore closing them and trying to push them into a sale. But if you're honest and truthful with the major objections, they're going to trust you. Like, here's the thing. People love to buy. Like, they absolutely love to buy, and they hate being sold to. I didn't create that statement. That's been around for a long time. I don't know who coined it, but that's what got me to understand that selling is not a bad thing. Like, people love to buy. They love to swipe their credit card. It's like instant gratification. Anyway, does that help explain the difference between sleazy salespeople and answering objections?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yep. Of course. So this is the deal, right? We are literally flipping the sales conversation on its head. When most people try to teach some irrelevant content first and then try to squeeze in an offer, we are selling the product and service first, then making the offer to join. Now, this is truly magnetic and a far more effective way to attract buyers without any sleight of hand sales techniques. All right, so what I would love to do right now, hopefully you guys have been asking questions. I would love to pause real quick and just answer any questions that have been coming through the chat window. And Chris, maybe you can fill me in and if there are any questions.
We've got one from Jeffrey here. And if you have a question, now's a good time to use the Q&A box or the chat. He says that he tried running a webinar series, but really struggled to get an audience to sign up for it. What's the most effective way to excite people to join the webinar?
So that's a great question. One of the things that you have to really focus on is the end point of your webinar, which is your offer, and the beginning point. Those are two of the most critical things. So I'll tell you a quick story. Last year when I was actually promoting my flagship training program, it's a $997 program for webinars. I was having a heck of a time. Like I was struggling to get this exact same problem I was going through. We were running ads and I'm just being fully transparent. We were not profitable with this webinar, which if you ever want to have a tough pill to swallow, be a webinar expert and be unprofitable with your webinar campaign because that stinks. But here's what happened. Like we figured it out and this is what everyone needs to do with their marketing. So as we were going to cold traffic and we were trying to we were leading with the thing of webinars, right? We were leading with the thing and we found a lot of resistance to leading with the thing, meaning, hey, let me show you how to write $1 million sales webinars for your course. And what we realized after doing market research was that a lot of people, they struggled with that. And we didn't break enough beliefs to show how simple and easy it can possibly be. But we made a slight tweak to our audience, like a small 2 millimeter shift. And we showed people how they could also get paid to write webinars. And when we did that, our lead cost dropped by 70%, right? So if you're having either a really high cost per lead based on paid ads, I'm not sure exactly how you are promoting this. Maybe you said it and I just misheard it. But if you're not getting a high response rate to your audience, like they probably don't want what you're talking about. And that's a high indicator that you have to make a pivot. And there's nothing wrong with that. We'll talk about how to fix that later on during the workshop. Because after I fell on my sword and had to swallow a big pill last year running an unprofitable webinar campaign trying to sell my webinar course, I needed to fix this. And we're going to be talking about that in a few minutes. But
so Jeffrey just made a clarifying point that he was using social media, not ads, but it's really the same point, right?
Yep. It's the same point because you still want to generate a response. You want to get people to sign up for your webinar, right? So no matter where you're going with it, you have to find something that people actually want. And we are going to talk about that with what I call the power offers. And so you never waste time writing webinars that nobody will show up to. It's a very common. Yep.
I just want to add to what you're saying. When Joel hit me up, he's like, what is some of the he mentioned at the beginning of the training here that what are these course creators struggling with? And I mentioned the offer, and it's not, I don't know if this is what you mean by the expert's curse. And speaking to Jeffrey specifically, it's not that you don't have all this great content and it can help people get results, but the foundational piece of constructing an offer and what you call the power offer is it's just fundamental. If you get that wrong, everything else later, it's not going to work or be under optimized.
Exactly.
So I'm excited about it.
Yep. Perfect. Cool. So any other questions? Was that the only one?
That's it right now. Jeffrey says, thank you. That's very helpful. I just had one more quick question. You said earlier on your webinar has to bring the value. And yep. I know you're doing a workshop on this webinar. Is that what's the best way to bring value to the webinar, in that content piece?
There's a lot so if you get people to have their shifts, you don't have to do a workshop. Right? There's lots of ways for people to get value within a webinar. If you just get them to see a new belief, see something in a brand new light that they've never thought possible, like when you read books, imagine when you read a book and you learn something in that book, just something small and minor, but it gets them to think completely different. That's a win, and that's value. Value doesn't have to be a direct ROI. It doesn't have to be a workshop. It doesn't have to be it comes in so many forms. And the simplest form that you can do is just making sure that they can change their mindset of something that the vast majority of them believe. You say, listen, that's false and I want to prove it to you. Here's why. Does that make sense?
Very cool. And we broke the seal. We got a couple more questions coming in from Ron. Is the title of the webinar important? So what would you say to that? Is the title the offer or how do you title?
Yeah. So I'd like to handle it at the end of the webinar because I think that will naturally get answered when we do the power offer stuff and we do the workshop. So we can push that one to the end if that's okay, Ronald. But we will answer that. And the short answer is yes, the title of the webinar is very important. And that's really what you're testing.
Quick tech question from Andrew. Do you like using Zoom for your webinars? I do because it's what I'm used to and use it for teaching and other things. But what is your thoughts on tech, or does it even matter?
It does matter. I guess the only way that I'll frame it is don't use Webinar Jam for live. That's the only. The other ones are fine. I haven't had any real issues with them, but I've had major issues with Webinar Jam Live. So, Demio we've used, GoToWebinar we've used, Zoom we've used. Those are the top 3 primary ones that we've used. And we've used Webinar Jam as well, and that one was really, really unreliable. So awesome. Okay, cool. So I slotted out 2 minutes for this. I want to make sure we get to the rest of the content because we're at the top of the hour already. So we're running a little bit behind schedule. So let's postpone the rest of those comments and questions through the end. And I promise you we'll get to them. Okay, cool. So next common question that we get is, doesn't it take a lot of effort to create a sales webinar? And this is where it gets really fun. We're going to go super deep because it literally took me the last 2 to 3 years to finally get this right. And this is what I've been hinting at the entire webinar. Rule number 3, how to get prospects running to work with you without falling victim to the expert's curse. Now, what is the expert's curse? The expert's curse is when you can't see the label from within inside the bottle. Like, you don't really know what your own value is because you're so close to it. That's the expert's curse. You can't explain to other people what it is that you actually do.
We're so with you right now. We're so with you right now.
Yep. That is the expert's curse. So I'm going to tell you there are 2 ways to write webinars. Okay. First, you have the rookies. Now, the rookies will go into a webinar blindly. They're going to create lots of content. They're going to think, okay, cool. I teach lots of stuff in my course. I can clearly do a sales webinar, and they're going to throw together an offer and hope that somebody buys. What ends up happening is they waste tons of time. 95% of the time, it's a complete failure, resulting in frustration, pain, and agony, and they're about to swear off their course entirely and just throw in the towel, right? Actually, a lot of them do throw in the towel, and they have so many courses that are just sitting on the shelf being unsold, right? Then there's the second way. This is what the professionals do. They know exactly what their audience wants to buy. They've already tested their offer to the market, and they know exactly how to position the offer before they write their first word of their webinar, right? So my silly question to you is, do you want to know exactly how to write webinars the professional way without all the pain and frustration? I'm going to assume that the answer is yes. Please tell me that the answer is yes. This is what I've spent the most time working on over the past couple of days as I've revised this presentation. So I'd like to introduce you to what I call the power offer. Now, the power offer is your anchor behind getting them to move through your funnel to speak with you. Any sort of funnel that you've got. I use funnel loosely because I also said earlier that the webinar really isn't a funnel, but you can make the argument that everything is a funnel, right? So it's the anchor behind getting them to move through your process to speak with you. It can be standalone, or it can be surrounded by marketing. Now, it has to be unique, it has to be clear, and it has to be beneficial for the prospect. It must always provide a result for the customer in exchange for an engagement. It should also provoke emotions when reading it. It should get you excited, like we talked about, like you're a little kid. And it will attract those who want your promised desired outcome. Okay? You guys want to see an example? This is one that I did last year, back actually August 9th of 2017 is when this ad launched. So here's the thing. You can use these as ads. You can use these as social media posts. You can use these in emails. The medium doesn't matter. All it matters is you get this offer structure right. Now, this can come in lots of different forms. We have lots of different forms of power offers, but I'm giving you like quite literally the bare bones, simplest example. And I want you to read this on the screen right here. Type 1 if you are paying attention and you are reading this on the screen, right? Type 1 in the chat box for me real quick. But I'm going to read it back to you. Course creators, coaches, and experts. If I offer to build you a high converting sales webinar with a super fast turnaround in about 24 hours, without you needing to worry about what to say or how to say it, so you can fill your courses and programs now, would you take me up on that offer? My company received this award below for building a 7-figure webinar. Since then, we built 9 more. Are you next? How simple and easy. Can anyone else write that offer? Can anyone else take this and apply it to your business, your course, your service, right? This is the power offer in its simplest form. And the headline is, want to launch your webinar next week. If you take a look at this, I wasn't spending a lot of money on this because I was getting applications for like 10 or 20 or 30 bucks, like at scale, when I was paying $400 to $500 per application. We had 212 people who had commented on it, 4 shares, tons and tons of comments. This was one of our top performing ads. And I also ran this to just my social media profile back in the day. So let's break this down a little bit, right? Here's another example. ABR Consulting, this guy is actually my CFO. So he hired me to help him get more leads coming in the door. He was running some case study funnel, some free checklist funnel. And what he does is he does remote-based CFO work, and he helps people balance their books and lots of other things, right? He was trying to sell people on bookkeeping services and just like one-off things. And when we worked together, he was burned out with relying on referrals only. He needed more leads for his financial service company. And the result was we took him from $0 to $32,000 in collected revenue, plus almost 10 grand in monthly recurring at the end of our 8-week engagement. And this was the ad that did it. So he said, hey, are you an online entrepreneur, digital agency, or consultant who's looking to 3 to 6x your revenue in 2018? Would it be helpful if we became your CFO for 6 weeks, analyzed your financial data, and created a very specific plan for you to do just that, all while increasing your profits? I'm talking a week-by-week plan that will make sure you 3 to 6x your revenue in 2018. If we offered to be your CFO for 6 weeks to make 2018 your most profitable year ever, to grow your team, to develop a weekly roadmap for you that ensures you hit your goals and allows you to give yourself a raise at the same time, would you take us up on that offer? Our client grew from 3 to 11 employees, increased their revenue by 60%, and quadrupled their profit margin in 10 months by following this same weekly plan that we want to set up for you. Is your business next? So if you read that, the last 2 examples that I gave you, how many of you got excited? Like, how many of you saw a clear, tangible result tied to those messages, those power offers?
Lots of yeses. Is this whole thing the offer? I'll just ask. So that's the offer. That's the power offer.
Yep. Cool. Yep. So that's it. So here's the thing, right? There's 2 critical elements of a power offer. Number 1, guarantees and promises. And number 2, speed of implementation and results. Those are the 2 things that people care about. Those are the only 2 things that people care about. And for the most part, when you're doing a course or any sort of educational based offer, like, how can you speak in these terms? Whenever somebody wants to get a problem solved, this is what they want. You don't have to guarantee, like, I'm not saying you have to guarantee results, but like, you have to let them know, like, you are confident and you stand behind your product. That's the only thing that they care about. And they want to know how long is it going to take, right? So beforehand, we would create all this marketing material on the front end with our webinars, and then we'd work on the offer. Now we've completely flipped the script. Because if I get crickets, if I drop one of these power offers in there and I get crickets, I'm not writing a webinar around that power offer, right? I'm only writing a webinar around something that I know people are super, super interested in, right? So now, like, this is step 1 before I ever introduce a webinar. Right? So when you nail your power offer, you'll have validated your offer to your audience. You will get prospects immediately raising their hand, running to work with you, and you will know exactly what to offer on your webinars without uncertainty, confusion, or lack of clarity. You won't have to write an entire webinar without knowing if people actually want what you're selling. And you can test this right now, like right now with your social media. So who wants to know the unfair advantage you get with nailing your power offer? And I asked that question because it is workshop time. So what I want you guys to do is I'm going to give you permission. Go ahead and minimize this real quick, or not completely minimize it, but like open up a new screen, open up a browser, and let's work on a power offer together. All right. So this is what we're going to do. If I broke this down into 6 steps, you guys can create your own power offer. And I want you to drop this on your Facebook or Instagram or whatever you have the most following with social media. Because I want to see by the end of our webinar today, I want to see who's getting results and who's getting feedback. We have had just the other day, somebody launched a power offer, got 7 leads for his chiropractic agency business. And like it's crazy. This doesn't work just for service providers. It works for course creators too. We want people to raise their hand. Hey, if I showed you, I just created a power offer the other day for my buddy Greg, who runs a systems business. He has a course and a program that he helps people systemize their business. And what he was doing, and the problem that he was having, was people didn't necessarily want to systemize their business. Like, I'm not excited about a system. Like, there's other things that I like that are involved in that system. So we crafted a power offer, and we went specific to hiring an assistant to free up your time, which is like step 1 of building his whole system. And when we did that, he got 70 people to raise their hand saying, yes, show me how to hire a $10 to $15 an hour assistant to free up my time by 30 hours a week. That was the power offer. We got them all to raise their hand, about 70 people to raise their hand. And he's going to be making a $6,000 or $8,000 offer to them in just a couple of days. So attention audience, right? Who is your ideal audience? For me, it was course creators, coaches, and experts. If I offered to give you some overt benefit, some very clear benefit, if I offered to build you a high converting sales webinar without the major struggles that they're having, without you needing to worry about what to say or how to say it. So you can fill up your courses and programs now, right? In a certain number of days or weeks with a super fast turnaround. We were doing this one in about 24 hours. This was a test run. So we were testing a 24-hour webinar turnaround. We didn't end up going through with it, which is perfect because this helped us validate if we could handle this, right? Which we couldn't. I mean, at least not at scale. Would you take me up on that offer? This is the most important thing, right? What I teach everybody, do not go for the freebie seekers in your market. Let them know that you're in business and let them know that you have something of value that they are going to need. This is why I'm so against, and when you're just getting started up, there's time and place for all of this, but I'm so against leading with free if you're not getting consistent customers in the door on a daily basis, right? Yes, you can do free checklists and free lead magnets down the road, but not until you're at 20 to 50K per month and you're getting that consistently by leading with power offers. Because if you spend marketing on free checklists and free lead magnets, you're going to get a lot of freebie seekers. And that's not where you need to be focusing your time. So putting this statement in here, would you take me up on that offer? Saying, I have an offer for you. Do you want it? It is super, super important because you are setting the expectation up front that you are not here to give them anything for free, right? And include social proof if you have it. So this is it. What, 7, 8 lines of text that generated a lot of money for us. How many of you can create this in probably the next 2 to 3 minutes? Like just a rough draft, to get it live. What I want you to do is I want you to create a rough draft and I want you to send it live to your Facebook feed or Instagram, wherever your social following is. By the end, I want to see who got responses. This is how I want to make this interactive. And I want you guys to get results by the end of this webinar. So post it on your social media, and after the Q&A, I want to see who's gotten the most response, as I just mentioned there. All right, so we covered a lot today. Let's do a quick recap and discuss exactly what we talked about, right? Today on our training, you've learned in rule number 1, I showed you how to start generating leads and clients on demand with minimal ad spend using the direct webinar method. You learned you don't need a complex marketing funnel to sell your services. And we went over how to do that by only speaking to the absolute hottest of prospects like the car salesman in the broken down car example, right? In rule number 2, I showed you the experts method for a conversion, how to write psychological content that sells before you ever make an offer. Part of this was going over why teaching doesn't sell during your webinar and the 3-part process that we use to format your webinar so it's as persuasive as possible. We broke down how it works, and I even gave you examples on how to write it, with the first step being your product, your service, and your offer, and then handling their top objections in the next 2 steps. And finally, we covered power offers, right? How to get prospects running to work with you without falling victim to the expert's curse. Now, at the beginning, I promised to show you how we write $1 million webinars for any niche for all of you course creators, right? Without falling victim to the expert's curse. So my question is, did I keep that promise, right? Did I keep my promise? Did you guys get value out of this presentation? Did you guys comprehend what I was talking about? Like, can you take that value away and implement it and understand how you can get more clear with your message and use webinars to enroll customers in masses?
You're getting a lot of yeses.
Awesome. Perfect. Ronald, John, Jeffrey, and Andrew, thank you. Yes, 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 yes. Perfect. So I hope some who are on took action during the workshop and have started getting results. It might take a few minutes, but what I want to do is I want to go on to the rest of the presentation. And my primary goal for you was to get you those initial results and understand like the power of effective marketing and effective sales messages, because you can use this for everything. Even outside of webinars. A webinar is just an interactive sales letter. That's all it is. And so like The same process that we used for the 3-part method can be used in a sales letter. The only other thing that we do with webinars is we make them engaging, right? I can connect with all of you at mass, so let's connect and let's keep it engaging. Build that bond and build that trust. That was my goal for you guys to learn today. So can you see how implementing this simple structure will allow you to cut through the digital marketing noise and quickly enroll more customers and clients into your programs, right? Hopefully the answer is yes. Do you see how simple and effortless webinars can be to convert new customers on demand? Did I make that simple and easy for you? Hopefully that answer is yes. Now, I've got complete confidence that you could take everything we covered today here and on your own, go out and put it into action and get results like we did on the workshop that you previously thought weren't possible. And I am certain that just within the information that we covered on this training today, that you can go out on your own and be successful with what we've learned. That is my goal. That is my mission for you. But what if there were another option, right? An option that allowed us to do this together, a chance to go deeper than we can in 1 hour and 16 minutes that we've been on today, connecting together one quick time, right? What if there were a way that I could play an active role in your results, took a responsibility in your success, and had an obligation to your outcome? How would that make things different for you, right? I want you to think about that. Do you think in that situation, if I could empower you with all the resources at my disposal to help you and make your success practically guaranteed? Right? At the beginning of the training, I also promised you an opportunity to take the next steps with us. Now, what I've put together with the Webinar Vault was designed to give you up-to-date insights that go even deeper and more thorough than we could have covered in this short training today. And it's designed to get you the results that you want, to get you the results that you desire, and quite frankly, deserve as an entrepreneur who wants more customers and clients for their programs without the hassle of complicated marketing. Right? Why wouldn't you consider something that could practically guarantee your success, right? So I've got a saying that goes, the only way to combat the rapid change in digital marketing is to become the perpetual student. And you can remove digital marketing and just input anything that you want, right? But becoming the perpetual student is what I try to do every single day, specifically with webinars. And I live by this every single day in my business. And I call it the laws of mastery. This is what I was hinting at earlier in the presentation today. As you probably realize, the best way to become a master at a skill is by practicing your craft over and over and over again. Repetition, repetition, repetition. And right now, nobody is looking at more webinars on a regular basis than me, period. Nobody. I can make that promise. Personally, I'm currently reviewing about 10 to 15 webinars per month on average right now, and I need to, because I'm looked up to as a master expert of my craft in webinars for clients who are paying us multiple 5 figures to build these for them. So just like you're looked up to with your students and your customers and clients as an expert in your field, that's how I'm viewed. And I need to bring that responsibility. That is my commitment to my customers. Now, I'm going to take a wild guess and assume you likely don't have 80 hours per month to spend reviewing webinars. At least I hope you don't, right? I hope you've got your own business that you run and you're perfecting your own craft. But wouldn't it be nice if you could get an inside look at my mind, someone who's literally reviewed hundreds and hundreds of webinars, and see exactly how I analyze, how I deconstruct and review winning webinar campaigns that are generating hundreds of thousands of dollars per month each? And I'm not talking about funnel hacking. I'm talking about watch me as I dissect all of these webinars, all of these campaigns. I say, this is what I like about it. This is what I don't like about it. Here's how I would change it. Here's why Mike Dillard is making $300,000 per month with his automated webinar, which is just freaking absurd, right? I went through a complete 2.5 to 3 hour breakdown of his campaign and show you all of that stuff that is going on, why he's speaking certain languages, who his audience is that he's attracting. It's the number one reason why people don't make conversions, is because they're speaking possibly the right message, but to the wrong audience, or vice versa. All of this is so you can learn exactly what's working now and avoid the fatal mistakes that most newbies make with their webinars, right? So would you want a regular piece of that so you don't have to spend 40 hours per month reviewing each webinar? That's my question to you. That's why we created the Webinar Vault for entrepreneurs. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to go into more depth about what's covered inside the program. If it's the right fit for you, I want you to get it. If it's not the right fit for you, I don't want you to get it. Plain and simple. Does that sound fair?
Sounds good.
Awesome. Cool. So if you want to grow your course and consistently enroll more customers by the masses so you can become an authority that can confidently charge what you're actually worth, stay ahead of the game by learning the up-to-date changes and strategies in webinars, and discover how to earn more with one webinar than you earned in an entire year, then the Webinar Vault is specifically for you. Now, here's what you get when you join today. The Webinar Vault is an over-the-shoulder deep dive into my mind, seeing which webinars are working right now. Every 30 to 60 days, I release a new in-depth guide of example webinars that are making consistent sales. And you get to watch over my shoulder as I take you by the hand every step of the process as we review various webinar sales systems together. For example, how Mike Dillard really makes $300,000 per month with his automated webinar that has been running for like 2 to 3 years. How I boosted Andrew and Daryl's sales by tenfold in under 1 hour. You get to see that entire conversation that I had with them live. The unique monster webinar that Dr. Axe uses on his website to promote one of his flagship programs. This is one that I just released last week. It's an absolute value bomb. And an inside look at an in-person seminar that does multiple 8 figures per year, and nobody else is doing this to perfect their sales presentations. We talked about this early on. This was the real estate seminar that I went in and just intentionally walked into a sales pitch to learn what they were doing. How I took a non-converting webinar to convert more than 12% on the very next run with my client, Bonnie, and a heck of a lot more, right? These are coming up every 30 to 60 days. So here's what happens. Immediately upon joining, you will receive a private message from me in your inbox with specific instructions for how to log in. Our systems will unlock access for you to receive our 8-figure sales training so you can get started immediately right now, and you'll be tempted to run into a full-blown sprint to start consuming the content and taking as much action as possible, because as we all know, time is money. You'll experience a training unlike any other with over-the-shoulder, high-definition produced quality content, and you're also going to get lifetime access to our agency software called SlideSell, which helps you write your sales presentations on the fly. Like, it's literally the best thing that we've ever created, and we're giving it for free to all of our students who join the Webinar Vault. Now, I don't have time to go over exactly what that is. I can send you a link to a demo later on, but I promise you that's just a bonus. Like, just appreciate that as a bonus, and you get to get lifetime access to it when you join. So what that means for you is you'll be able to create your presentations in 95% less time. You'll get high converting sales presentations built right the first time, and you'll have everything pre-mapped out, ready to roll when you're ready to launch your campaign. So Greg is a recent client who just joined with me about 2 weeks ago, and here's his story. He called me about a year ago, last August, and he was considering hiring us to build a webinar for him. He decided to go with somebody else. He spent $20,000 on some other guru, some other funnel hacker who got him 0 results. Why? Because he was following some perfect, template that was out there, and he wasn't customizing it. He wasn't understanding exactly the shifts that you need to go through to make the best offer possible. So after he left that guy and he modeled my webinars, bought my course, and went through my training program, he now closes 9% live every single webinar on a $997 product. Plus, he does a ton more sales on the follow-up, right? So every single week now he's giving this live, and he's doing $15,000 to $20,000 in sales. That's how powerful this stuff is when you understand the psychological principles and you're not following just a template. It's the exact same system used by Justin, my dentist client, who generated more than $75,000 in 6 days while he was out hunting. I'm not going to read his entire message, but basically I was following up with him. He's like, oh yeah, I was hunting and we generated 75 grand, just getting back into it now. Very nonchalant. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm glad you think that's normal. So Jason, the real estate marketer, generated more than $10,000 in a single day from one webinar, and he has far surpassed this. This was probably 2016 when I had this snapshot. So he's doing over 100 grand a month right now. Probably closer to 200 grand a month. But anyway, when we first got it started, December 29th, 2016, did $10,000 that day. And I followed up with him recently to see where his latest results were, and he's well past the 10 sales. And last week he sold 23 copies of his course, and that was absolutely incredible. He's doing some amazing things, and super, super proud of him. This is, for him, it was a story of persistence, and it was a lot of fun. So then we've got Adam, who did over $100,000 his first month launching his webinar, and he's doing well more than, he's well clear of that right now. Again, that was probably 2016 when I got that result from him. And Adam is a multiple repeat client. He came to my live event back in December of last year, and he's just doing some incredible things, right? Quite honestly, guys, my goal for you is to anoint you as our next six-figure expert, just like Lynn, just like Eddie, and just like Jason, who are all doing well over six figures with their webinar. Hopefully, we can push you to seven figures or even eight figures, but, hopefully you guys would find some value in becoming that six-figure expert, right? So if you want to get paid to write webinars, right? Imagine how much companies would be willing to pay you to write webinars that produce these types of results. The very first client paid me over 10 grand per month to write and optimize their webinar. And as we started getting results, we upped our prices. First, we upped it to 12,000, then 18,000 plus commission. And now we're strictly on a performance basis because we didn't want to be capped at a certain revenue number. So eventually we got to $25,000 per sales webinar, and people were still willing to pay that because they saw how valuable it was. We sold a bunch at 25 grand, and we started growing the agency until eventually we got to 40 grand per webinar funnel build. And quite honestly, guys, the sky is the limit. This is a super specific, super tangible asset that you can bolt onto your marketing agency or your marketing firm, and a skill that you can use for your own business or to market for other clients. And if you learn how to write webinars, you can learn how to write sales letters. You can learn how to write any sort of sales message possible. I promise you. Okay, so the Webinar Vault. Our coaching program last year sold at $8,000 per spot. You'll be getting everything you need to write high converting sales webinars for your business or to sell as a service for your clients. And our webinar coaching program last year sold out at $8,000 per spot, like I mentioned before. Now you'll be getting everything you need to write webinars for yourself or your business. You won't be paying $4 grand. What we've done for the Webinar Vault is we can get started today for a free trial, right? It's just $97 a month, but you get a 7-day free trial or $97 a month, no commitment. But the best option is to skip the free trial, go for an annual, and you'll save 58%, and you'll unlock all of the back issues. So those are your two options today, and you can get started by going to soldwithwebinars.com. Now, we provide you with a guarantee. I want you to feel completely safe when you join, and here's why, right? If you're on the fence with the Webinar Vault, you can try it free for risk-free. You can try it risk-free for 7 days. Review the current webinar campaign installment to get a feel for what it is. And if it's not something that you're up for, that's fine. We don't want your money. Give it a shot. Email Mary Jo at the Webinar Agency. She's the boss. She handles everything. Also my wife, but she controls quite literally everything with the business. And we'll cancel your trial. No questions asked. There are no shenanigans, right? If you want instant access to all of our Webinar Vault campaigns, then skip the trial and save 58% and just pay $485 for the year. This is clearly the best value for you, but I completely understand. If you just want to go for the free trial, go for it. Check it out. See what the current webinar campaign is. But if you're all in right now and you want to save 58%, then go for the yearly subscription, and you'll unlock all the back issues. You'll get every single webinar campaign and all future campaigns that we do. That's truly the best value for you. So there's literally no excuse for why you can't be successful with webinars on this offer. Okay, so in a minute, we'll get to the final Q&A because I know we are running just a little bit long here. So if you've got any further questions, make sure you type them in the chat box down below. But I want to answer a couple of very important questions. Number one, why should you join now? Here's the deal. Traffic is one of the most common issues that I hear from my students. One of the most common problems. They don't know how to get traffic, or they're really struggling with it. So the common question is, Joel, how do I get people to show up? Option number one is with paid ads, and they work. But I understand with people that have some sort of hesitancy with them, right? Recently, I had a guest host a special training to my Vault members, which we do also monthly, which I haven't even mentioned. Anyway, he came on and he showed all of my members how to get 100 free webinar registrations per day with a very unique strategy. And I'm including a special locked traffic bonus for this audience, right? Chris, for your audience, it's going to be unlocked for all of them if they join today. Now, this is legitimately a $500 per day value, assuming you're a rock star and getting $5 leads with paid traffic, which most people aren't. But It's an incredible value, and I know people who are using it right now, and they're getting incredible results with it. So it's a really, really awesome bonus. And when you head to soldwithwebinars.com and you enroll today, I'll unlock that special bonus training for you as a thank you for Chris allowing me to give this training for you guys. All right? So many people are still wondering, who the heck are you, Joel? Why should I follow you? And let's address the elephant in the room. Right? I've tried to make this training as much about you as possible, but ultimately you're investing in me as your training coach. So allow me just a few minutes to talk about what webinars have done for my life and for my business. Now, sure, the money is great, but that's not what people always buy. They're not buying money. Sometimes they're buying freedom. Sometimes they're buying lifestyle, right? What's even better for me is that webinars have truly been what has allowed me to earn freedom and the lifestyle that I've always wanted. I like working on my own terms, waking up whenever I want and enjoying my time with my family. We're about to go on a 5-day trip out west in October. I've got a speaking engagement there. We're going to take a 5-day vacation. We head down to Florida every year for about a month, and I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't have webinars and I didn't have this book of business coming in every single day. So this picture on the left was taken in the middle of a regular work day, which is great because I can take time off whenever I want while my webinars are running on autopilot, or we're doing them live once a week or whatever the routine is, right?
Joel is also obsessed with his lawn, which I noticed on social media. So
I am. I'm just slightly obsessed with my lawn. So I did get to spend a lot of time, and although I've got moles in my backyard, which are just completely tearing it apart, which it's very sad. Very sad, Chris.
Yeah.
Anyway, this gives me the opportunity to kind of go about and just take time off whenever I need to and enjoy my well, he was probably 2 months old in that picture. He's now 2 years old, which is crazy to think that he's grown that fast. But, you know, it allowed me to travel to San Diego, you know, a bunch during that year. And guys, it's just been the greatest thing that I've implemented for my business. And it provided me with a lifestyle that I really had never dreamed about. So quite simply, you want to wrap this up. If you want to grow your course and consistently enroll more customers by the masses and become an authority that can confidently charge what you're actually worth, stay ahead of the game by learning the up-to-date changes and strategies in webinars, and discover how to earn more with one webinar than you have earned in an entire year, then the Webinar Vault is specifically for you, right? Head over to soldwithwebinars.com, enroll now. You've got 2 options, the free trial, or you can unlock all the back issues and save 58%. That's the one that I recommend. But if you're still on the fence, go ahead and sign up for the free trial. Cancel anytime. I appreciate all of you. Chris, let's wrap this up and let's answer questions, man.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to be rewatching this. I'm going to be joining the Webinar Vault. And yeah, I just want to thank you so much for doing this. And for you watching this and listening, stay to the end of the questions. We are going to be doing a LifterLMS giveaway. We've got some questions coming in. If you have a burning question while you have Joel here, use the Q&A box or drop something in the chat because, you know, when I started listening to your podcast, I was like, oh man, I have some follow-up questions with this guy. So we have him live right now. Let's hit him up and extract as much value as we can. John asked, I think you just covered it. Do you have an offer for educators? So that's what you just went through. He asked this a little earlier in the presentation, but I guess to add a little clarification to his question, you serve different types of people, but for the educators specifically, how can the vault most help?
Okay. So I don't know if I fully understood. So do I have an offer for educators, or was he asking about the power offer for educators?
Oh, that's a good clarification. John, also, by the way, I should add, if anybody wants to talk live, you can raise your hand and we'll bring you right up so we can hear your voice and have a back to forth conversation.
Cool. I'm just going to lower my standing desk. So if you hear some noise, I'm just going to sit down because my back is killing me.
Yeah, no problem. And John did clarify in the chat, he's looking for on the power offer. So the power offer for educators, as opposed to, I think, service providers.
Yeah, I mean, so the example that I gave with Greg earlier, he's an educator, so he's teaching people how to systemize the businesses. He's not doing it for them. I mean, the best way is to pick out something tangible. So Greg, who was very, very smart guy, and he runs a 6-figure per month business. So he's doing fine, but he was suffering from high cost per lead, high cost per customer acquisition. And when we dove deep into figuring out like what was really going on, he, he wasn't clear on his message. And so he was trying to sell systems, but what we discovered, nobody wants to buy systems. Like nobody wants systems. You have to figure out what people actually want. And so after I asked him a few questions, I realized that like, okay, cool. He taught people how to hire a $10 to $15 an hour virtual assistant that would free up 30 hours per week of the entrepreneur. So we led with that. And I said, who wants to learn that? And we got 70 people to raise their hand versus his other offer was, hey, do you want to learn how to systemize your business? Like you have to ask yourself, like, do people really understand what systemizing their business is? I mean, replace systemize your business with whatever you think your offer is. If they don't, like if they're not responding to it, and like poor Greg, like he just kept going at it with that same angle, beating it over the head, square peg, round hole, square peg, round hole. And I'm like, dude, nobody's responding to it. Like no wonder why you're frustrated. So you have to like take that piece out and figure out what is one thing, because you can come in with multiple angles too. But like take something out of the system. Like he's trying to sell the box and people wanted to buy the marbles inside the box. They wanted to buy the cake inside. Like it's almost like you're trying to sell the, like if you're cooking, this is a terrible analogy. I was going to say, how do you, they wanted to buy the, the crust on the pizza. Forget that. That's an awful analogy. So,
it's like the brownie box, but they don't want the brownie box. They want like an awesome birthday party or something, right?
Yeah, I was trying to say like he was trying to sell like the system on the outside, but like what they wanted was like the components inside, right? So he was trying to sell the big system, which has to go into your marketing for sure, but like if you could pick something outside, like inside that system and say, okay, like those are the power offers that I'm testing, right? Because he was like, they weren't, maybe they will respond to the system, like, but that's why you test. So, because I had other clients too, that we can just sell the system, like the methodology, right? But with Greg's offer, they didn't want to buy the system because the system is not tangible. You have to make whatever you're selling tangible. And so like, to answer your question, John, like I can't give you, like that's as most specific of an educator example as I can give you. So hopefully that helps, but like, every offer is different. So there's my answer for you. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. He said, thank you. I have a twist on that question, which is like in the example you gave, it was like, if I offered to build you, what if the thing people are offering is like a membership site that has a community, it has courses, it has coaching. Like what's like just kind of a generic, it's more than just like a service. Like I'm not going to build you anything, but what kind of verbs or I don't know, is there some like generic power offer you could come up with for like an online course community coaching program membership site thing?
So
like what do they really want? Like what's the why behind the what in that case?
All right.
I'm putting you on the spot. So.
You want the top secret intel?
Yeah.
That, like I only share with people who've paid like 5 figures for this.
Sure. Yeah. So I was going to extract the value. So here we go. We're ready.
Yeah. So, all right. With that ad that I showed you earlier, if I offer to build you a webinar, right?
Yeah.
I call this aspirational marketing. I also call it the backdoor method. And it wasn't intentional, but after I got so many responses and I started taking these calls from people who were interested in having me build them a webinar, I would always downsell them because they couldn't, they couldn't afford my top level services, or B, they weren't ready for it, right? Here's the story behind how we created this thing called mini webinars, which is not even relevant to our conversation today, but it is relevant because this is how I realized the power of power offers. So we would have a whole bunch of people hop on the phone with me, responding to that ad saying, hey, I've got a $500 course. I want you to build a webinar for me, right? And they hadn't tested, hadn't validated any of their offers. Like they literally just created the product. Like, Joel, sell it for me on autopilot. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's 25 grand. Oh my God, I don't have 25 grand, right? So like I wouldn't, like after like the first couple of calls, like I knew the answer was going to be no. So I would not ever offer that. I would just let them know like, hey, listen, based on what you're telling me, it doesn't sound like you're a good fit for this. So here's what I would offer you. And I would show them how to write a power offer and how to generate leads and sales on demand. I said, when you're ready for a webinar, Like after you've validated this and you've sold a few, then come back and we can build a webinar for you and help you scale, right? But I would force them, I mean, my recommendation, I don't force them to do anything, but my recommendation to them was to generate leads first and sell on the phone to validate your offer and sell the top level service. So like whenever I launch an offer, I give 3 levels. Okay. I give 3 levels of access. The top level is either one-on-one with me or it's a done for you service, right? So if I've got a course, I guarantee, and I want to sell it for $500, awesome. I'm going to include 2 levels above that. Like the bottom level course is going to include 0 support. Okay. It's going to be just the course, do it yourself, go get them, Tiger. Just like you're selling a DVD.
DIY. Okay? Yeah.
Yep. DIY. Exactly. My level up is going to be done with you, where it'll be once or twice a week, group coaching calls, whatever you want it to be, but it's a group. It is not one-on-one. It is only group. And then my top level is either done for you or one-on-one support with me. And that's how I monetize it 3 different ways with one single offer. Because I guarantee you will have people who buy the course. You actually, like most of the people who are sitting in on a webinar will not buy your top level service because they value their time, or they value their money more than they value their time. So they're willing to give up more time to sit on a webinar. That's why you sell courses and done with you programs on that, because they need more time to make the decision. We're getting into super complex stuff that I teach inside my $5,000 level program, but I'm trying to give you the gist of it. But does that make sense?
Yeah, that's super helpful. Steve has a question. From your experience, what advertising media has the best results?
Yeah, great question. We've always done Facebook. I've had a lot of clients do YouTube now, and YouTube seems to be the most scalable. I don't care what anybody says with Facebook and who promises to get you $5 leads or $10 leads consistently. I call their bluff every single day because the advertising platform by nature is an auction, and you can't get any sort of consistent results with an auction. The price changes by the second. So anyway, I've heard that YouTube is the most scalable. We've always relied on Facebook. We've got great success with Facebook. So
that is cool. Any thoughts on Instagram?
Yeah, we've had a lot of people have success with Instagram too. I just haven't dove into it. Personally, I have an ads manager who does it. I know we are running some Instagram ads now. I don't know what the results are. I try to steer clear from traffic. Traffic gave me the biggest headache in the world. It really did. Like, I'm a conversion guy. I mean, obviously I need traffic, but I always sub it out to somebody who knows
that makes sense.
A lot more about it than I do.
I have a question kind of related to what you were just talking about, which was, I see this is more of like comment, or it's not really a question, but I see a lot of people when they launch their course and they're not necessarily trained marketers or they're beginner marketers, they think they want to go build an affiliate army. And so they get focused on, okay, I can't sell. I'm going to go, or I'm not a great salesperson, or I'm really busy. I'm just going to go get a bunch of affiliates to sell for me. But I would posit, like, before you even think about that, you need to make sure your offer converts and that you have data that you can share with your affiliates. And why not get that offer converting on a webinar that you run yourself that your affiliates can send traffic to? But I don't know, would you comment on that? Like, you talked about the power of validation, validating the offer before you try to scale it, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you nailed it on the head. You got to validate. Otherwise, you won't get affiliates. Maybe you'll get a couple of affiliates that'll promote you, but like, you have to validate.
A popular thing in the course building community right now is the concept of piloting the course before and pre-selling it. Do you have any thoughts on just like I think you mentioned in one of your case studies where somebody created a course and then they went to go try and sell it. But if you're going to pre-sell and you're going to put the offer together and get some orders and some validation and potentially get some early people in the program, could we use webinars to like pre-sell courses?
Yeah, you can. I wouldn't, but
why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Yeah.
So what I would do is I would just run a power offer and I'd get people on the phone and I would see if they would buy. Like, a webinar is what I would do for scale, 100%. Yeah, but I would
save the webinar for later, like when you're ready to scale, the product's ready.
You can do a webinar, but I wouldn't like go all out. Like, I would make sure that I get people to raise their hand, say they're interested in this, And then I would do a very simple webinar where I would say, okay, cool, I'm going to talk about it, but I would let them know straight up front, like, there's an offer. I would let them know that, this is something that I'm selling. I'll give you more information on this webinar, but like I would be upfront and let them know that we're going to have, founding members or whatever.
Is there you mentioned there's automated webinars and live webinars. How often should you run a live webinar before you think it's ready for auto or whatever? Or you should never start with an automated webinar, right? Or
I would never start with it.
Yeah.
There's too many other variables. We've done it before. It's very stressful, especially for clients, because they're looking at pretty much every dollar in ad spend. And they're like, oh, why isn't the webinar converting? We have gotten them to convert, but I will tell you that it's a lot harder to get them to convert straight automated right away. Yep.
That is cool. With the webinar funnel, you mentioned like be careful of like overcomplicated funnels and beware of free. Could you just recap like what a basic webinar funnel would look like?
Yeah. So, you want to have like a typical, it depends, like okay. So let's say you're doing a live weekly webinar, right? I'll use my, actually the best case is to go to this case study, right? This $466,000 case study, because we outline the entire funnel there. But it was a live once a week webinar. We would, after the webinar, we would send them 3 or 4 days of follow-up emails and get them to buy. And if they didn't buy, we just re-invited them to next week's live webinar. And you would be amazed at how many people bought after watching the webinar 5, 6, 7, even 8 times. Like, people need to reconsume and consume that content over and over and over again before they buy.
I got another question for you. If anybody else here has a question, go ahead and ask it before we wrap up. You were not a marketer salesperson first. You were an engineer first, so you were kind of like expert first, marketer later.
Yep.
What do you think the benefit of coming to it from that direction is? I know there's like it's a transition to go from expert to marketer, but what is the benefit from coming from an engineering background into this?
Man, I wish I could tell you. It might be that I'm very analytical and skeptical by nature. I think that is probably the answer to what you're getting at. I don't really know why it's worked for me. I wish somebody could kind of crack open my brain and tell me, because I'm very interested to know. But by nature, engineers have to be very analytical. But something in my mind is also very creative. I'm probably one of the worst engineers out there, which is why I left my engineering career after my design engineering career after 8 months. I was in sales engineering for 5 years, but design engineering, which is what I went to school for, I only lasted about 8 months. I was very, very awful.
Right. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yep.
We are going to draw our winner now for the $99 LifterLMS add-on. If you want to use that against something more expensive, you can. If you're already a customer, you can apply that we'll apply that to your existing license. And the winner is Lisa Cook. So congratulations, Lisa. Just hit us up at team@lifterlms.com about that. I have a final question for you. You mentioned Mike Dillard, and he's in the webinar vault. What's one thing, like when you look at that case study, sorry, let me back up and say for a second, we have a model that we teach in one of our lead magnets, which is that there are 3 course types. There's what we call a resource course, which is the most dangerous. That's like, I'm inside the bottle, I've got all these things. We have the behavior change course, we have the learner process course, and then there's a 4th course type that I see working out in the offline world and in the online world, which is the case study course. So I love how you're doing these case studies and figuring out what works is not necessarily so we can just learn from other people. I mean, it's how the human brain works with mimicking and everything like that. I remember a long time ago when Mike Dillard was kind of starting to blow up, and I jumped on one of his webinars, and I think it might have went down because it was like getting crushed with like too many people trying to get in there or whatever. And it was like, whoa, this guy, this guy, for whatever he's selling, he figured this out a long time ago. So what have you learned from Mike Dillard? And, what's one takeaway to, get people excited about the webinar vault, that they're a little nugget from Mike Dillard?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's hard to say without pointing to the dude's just a brilliant copywriter. He knows his market like the back of his hand. And to get a webinar that is doing those types of numbers, like, you have to have a deep understanding of what your market really wants. And he has a good relationship with his list. That there comes a point when you do so much marketing that it starts to affect your cold traffic. Meaning you have so much brand awareness. Like if
like
we're to be
Gary Vaynerchuk has a lot of brand awareness. So what do you mean by that? Like,
yeah. So, I mean, Mike Dillard has been advertising for so long that like his even when he runs cold traffic, people just know of him because they've seen him around. So it's not actually completely ice cold.
Okay.
And I believe that's a big piece of like why he's been able to have such a successful cold traffic webinar. Same thing you can say for Sam Ovens right now. Sam and Ty Lopez, right? But I know Sam runs an auto webinar that does very, very well. Dan Locke is another person. Like, these people who spend so much money that they're all over the place, you start to reap additional benefits that most other people, like if me or you or some other Joe Schmo who hardly advertises at all tries to sell Mike Dillard sells a $1,500 offer on that auto webinar. If we tried to do it, we'd be our backs would be up against the wall because like absolutely nobody hears about us. But he's been around for a long time, so he's got some brand equity built in that people are talking about him. Like, even if you haven't been on his list, you've probably heard him mentioned, throughout the ranks of the course community and the whole 9 yards. But it makes his cold traffic more effective, his ice cold traffic more effective. So I would say that's a big piece of it. Yep.
And the skill of copywriting, I hear that come up over and over with him, that like that is the thing. And what you've taught us here today about the power offer is a copywriting exercise, but it's not just wordsmithing, it's putting it all together. So thank you for the workshop today. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
For those of you watching this, I would highly encourage you to check out the replay. We're going to be, if you're attending live, you're going to get an email with a link to watch this again. Check out soldwithwebinars.com. Thank you, Joel, for the generous offer.
Yep.
And also on the screen right now, there is the $466,000 case study, free case study. Go check that out. In this online course education entrepreneur community, we are full of, we're lifelong learners ourselves. So, the value of learning from you today and also what's inside the vault is really awesome. And I'm so glad that you've put all that together, as you are an education entrepreneur yourself. Is Sam Ovens in there?
No, I haven't done Sam's. Yep.
It's funny because I've recently started to, just try to look at the webinar channel, and I've downloaded like Sam Ovens slides and I'm like trying to deconstruct it. But if I know the guy, Joel Erway, who does all these webinars, like if you're going to do all that, I'm happy to stand on the shoulders of a giant. I'm not necessarily, I don't have the time. It's not my focus, but I want to use webinars. So I totally see the value. So I'm really excited to check out what's in the vault and learn from you and all the patterns that you're seeing, what's working, what's not working.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, man. It's been a blast. So, if anyone wants to connect with me, you can find me on Facebook. But I highly encourage you to check out the vault. Like I said, the two options are you can do a 7-day free trial, check out this month's installment, or if you want to unlock all the previous webinars that we've critiqued, you can save 58% and do the annual subscription. But either way, lots of value for you there. So thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, thank you. So let Joel know. Let's give him a big thank you in the comments. If you're watching this later on Facebook, let's leave a comment and say thanks. But yeah, Joel, I really appreciate it. And I will see you again in my earbuds as I continue to learn from you.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Yep. Have a good day.